Hello and welcome to the Xenogenesis podcast. This is episode 40, in which we're discussing chapters 18 and 19 from part 2 Phoenix of book 2 Adulthood-Rites of the Xenogenesis trilogy by Octavia Butler. My name is Richard Acton, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host.
Michael Glinka. Hi, everyone. Hi, Richard. It's already episode 40 of our podcast. Like, bloody hell, the time is flying by when you're having fun.
Yeah, it goes quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, my goodness. And we're almost finished with this part as well. We only have like 4 or 5 chapters left until we're done.
I think this is a good way through the whole book, actually, in terms of the total duration of it. I think it's a good chunk of it.
Yeah, it really is. But hell, we still have 2 parts left in the book, right? Am I correct?
I believe so, yes. And they're they're a little shorter than this one, though.
Right. And then, of course, book 3.
Indeed.
So still a lot of episodes ahead of us. Still all of us talking about random stuff, going off tangent about talking about science and the book.
Mm-hmm. No, well, that's the whole point.
Something to look forward to. Yeah. Yeah, but we eventually will have to start thinking about the next series to read.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, to all our listeners, Richard is doing anything in his power, so I stay in the position that I am, and I cannot punish him for what he's doing, like keeping all the information off me.
It's not my fault. I read a lot.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like you and your audiobooks really help you to like do stuff simultaneously.
Yeah.
So you can really like read the books and get through them.
Yeah, I mean,
whereas I can't deal with audiobooks. So.
This is a legit life hack, right? Audiobooks are the way forward for consuming vast volumes of content, right?
honestly, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I'm trapped basically. I'll be forever the scrub.
In all seriousness, though, we should try and see if we can find something to put me on the other foot here, if we can, because that would be an interesting experience. I'd like to try that, be on the other end of it.
Yeah, I'll have to really find some bizarre old series that you have never heard of. I'll have to have a look.
Yeah, see if you can find something. We should make this a research project.
Yeah.
You might have to just not tell me about it to prevent me from...
Yes, because you and me be like, oh yeah, I'll have the audiobooks for that. Oh, sorry, I've listened to all of it. By the next time we record, it's just like, oh, god damn you. But anyway, just thought that...
that's for a future problem. Right? We'll cross that bridge.
Yeah, it's the future Michael and the future Richard problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get to maybe a chapter 18 prediction.
Yes.
So I thought this time it was pretty easy to guess. The prediction was the village wakes up with the girls being gone, and Akin telling them that they escaped because of Neci.
Yeah.
I think we came to a conclusion what's her pronunciation, but I forgot already.
Yeah, let's go with Neci. But yeah, it was an interesting... it's a little bit slower, these 2 chapters. Well, not slower per se, but it's a bit more conversational than perhaps I might have expected. Right? You'd think kind of chaos with people looking for the kids, but it's a bit more of a conversation between Akin and Tate, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. And to be fair, the whole in the 2 chapters, the whole the girls being gone and any punishment for Neci for what she did, nothing really is described that much. It's just sort of, it's more of a state within Akin that's described here as such. But I guess let's get to it. So the chapter 18 starts off where we left off last time, with Akin forcefully put asleep by the girls lying on the floor. It's morning when Tate finds him and wakes him up. And here's an excerpt from a book. She awoke him by lifting him and was startled when he grabbed her around the neck and would not let go. He did not cry or speak. He tasted her but did not study her. Later he realized he had actually tried to become her, to join with her as he might with his closest sibling. So, of course, that was not possible. Like, Akin was basically looking for something that Amma and Schacht had, but what humans couldn't give him. Akin was attached to Tate, who didn't try to remove him anyway. And then, after some time, when he regained his senses, he finally withdrew from her. But by the time he did, Tate was sitting on the floor against the wall, holding him in her arms. And it's interesting, like that automatic response. It seems that humans haven't realized how serious that bond, like sibling bonding, is for the construct and for the Oankali when they're born.
Yeah, I think it's something that we've got quite a lot of emphasis on it in this book, and it wasn't really something that we didn't get it much in the previous one because we didn't have an Oankali perspective so much, and it's something that the humans don't really have a direct experience of. So, but I'm interested to see where it goes, right? Because there's definitely it's being highlighted, right? It has a bit of a Chekhov's gun feature at this point, right? It's there, so something's going to be done with it.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be a major sort of plot hook in a way, either next part or maybe next book, I don't know, but it seems to be probably next part because it seems to be more this time is important, right? You know what I mean? But yeah, it feels like this is an interesting aspect of what the Oankali experience when they have siblings, which wasn't much described. I don't remember. Do we have that Nikanj or Chitaya had siblings? Was it described before?
I don't think we heard anything about Chitaya. Nikanj, I think. Well, Nikanj is a little different because it's an Ooloi, right? So I think the sibling thing seems to be primarily focused on the male-female sib pairs. So presumably that would be Chitaya and Ahajas, right? Yeah. Although, we don't really have much of their bond per se. I suppose because they're already adult.
Okay. Yeah. Hold on, was Chitaya and sorry, what was the name of his wife?
It's Ahajas, right? The sister.
Ahajas. Was it a? Really?
Yeah, because the brother and sisters are the parents, and then they have an Ooloi, right? Is that not the relationship? Yeah.
No, hold on. Dichan, Ahajas and Dichan.
Oh yeah, Dichan. Yeah. No, sorry, yeah, I'm thinking of the different group. Yeah. Chitaya's.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, it's Ahajas and Dichan, and Chitaya's with.
Oh God, what was her name?
The other, I forget the. Because it was Chitaya.
It was long time ago.
It was Chitaya,
in the book
Kariat, and then the other one in that triplet. I can't remember what the.
Yeah, but they were siblings, right?
Yeah.
So that's.
I bet that's their typical pattern, isn't it? It's the siblings are the parents and the with the Ooloi.
So, but anyway, I just thought that this is like the emphasis on it is gonna be a major hook later on, and it's an interesting aspect. And I wonder, I bet this next part's gonna be more about Akin trying to bond with his sister, but in a way, it feels like this is also a major plot hook for a lot of like situations where siblings and they get separated and then stuff like that, and they're trying to find each other and stuff like that. So it feels like it's aiming towards there.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there's something they want to develop in that line of thought.
Once Akin straightened and oriented himself, Tate took his face in her hands and asked if everything was okay. Although he said yes, he didn't really explain further initially. Tate proceeded to tell him that she got a lecture about spoiling him during the breakfast, and that's when Akin told her that it's too late for him to bond. Explained to him what was wrong with him, that it's too late for him to bond, and he himself wasn't sure of his own answer about what's really happening with him. He felt lonely, but that didn't really encompass what he was feeling. The bond between Amma and Shkad really disturbed him in one way or another.
Yeah.
Or give him the feel of what he would have.
Yeah, I saw what he was missing.
What he's missing. Yeah. Tate then asked about girls, and although Akin didn't answer, Tate knew immediately what the truth was. As she was getting up, Akin told her to wait and told her about what Neci, the psychopath, was planning to do. Getting girls drunk. Although, according to Akin, the alcohol would either be immediately vomited out or go through their urinary system and then cut their tentacles off. And this is interesting, right? Because it seems that constructs, he said that, actually it doesn't affect constructs and Oankali the same way as it does humans, because it's not really poisonous. Well, I mean, it's not really true because it is poisonous, but in moderate concentrations, it's still accepted in the body, but it is a poison. And the fact that they can just either vomit it out, so I mean, that's usually the usual, too much alcohol, you vomit it out, or pee it out.
Yeah, but the urinary thing is a bit interesting because it's not. I mean, you will pass alcohol in urine if you have it in your blood because it's a small enough molecule that it'll get through the gaps in the glomerulus, and then it won't be reuptaken because the reuptake from urine is through aquaporins, which are incredibly selective water-specific channels. But normally speaking, most of the alcohol is processed in the liver through like an alcohol. It's alcohol dehydrogenase. I think is the first enzyme in that pathway, right? Yeah, so it goes from ethanol to acetaldehyde to acetic acid. But that's the usual pathway, the dominant one. Although, so for example, if people are doing tests to detect alcohol consumption in urine, they're not normally looking directly for alcohol, but rather for ethyl glucuronide, which is a kind of side product. So instead of going to the first enzyme in the alcohol metabolism pathway, there's a couple of side paths, and one of them is this glucuronidation, which is a very low frequency. It's like 0.1% of the alcohol or something gets the UDP glucuronyl transferase. This is a bit of a tricky one to pronounce. That adds this to glucuronic acid to the alcohol, and that what's the abbreviation of that? The ethyl glucuronide, ETG or something like that. That's what they actually do the detection for.
Right, so depending on the amount of it in urine, they can extrapolate the concentration of alcohol that was at least that was consumed or in the blood.
Yeah, it's more of a presence test. I think that they're not great at estimating amounts. It's quite sensitive. Okay. But yeah,
right.
It's but I thought it was a little interesting that that's how they detect it. So the alcohol itself must be a relatively low concentration component of this. So like for the most part, it seems like alcohol is very efficiently digested and broken down. There's not all that much of it circulating to end up being pushed out through the urine. Unless
you don't have the gene for the dehydrogenase, and then that's But I wonder what's the purpose of that molecule you're just saying. I'm not gonna try to name it because I need to first of all see it written down.
The glucuronide stuff. That's. I'm not. It seems like there's a few. I think it's not like a main product. It's not the alcohol byproduct is not a kind of particularly useful one. I think the glucuronosylation is something else that's used for other stuff, biosynthesis of certain hormones for transport. I think the glucuronic acid increases water solubility, so it's a molecule that's added to some stuff to make it easier to transport in blood.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. But the fact that it can go so quickly, like literally they will pee it immediately. It seems like they can force the body to bypass the normal digestive system and just go straight to the bladder and just off you go.
Yeah, whatever they're doing is very efficient at getting large volumes of alcohol out. And well, of course, the problem with sort of doing it via, like, if it was a human urinary system, is like you'd have to send quite a lot of alcohol volume through the blood undigested, which might cause problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's. There were cases of people having a lot of alcohol in the blood and still surviving, but
Yeah,
not recommended.
It messes with the osmolarity of all kinds of stuff, right? You have and it dries stuff out because it can it can end up in places where there's supposed to be water because it's quite similar in structure to water in terms of its electrical charge and so on. So it can make kind of a mess.
But yeah, it's interesting the fact that they can immediately bypass. I feel like we look at the Oankali and the construct sometimes in a way realistic way, Richard. Like, because we try to put in like, it's the same with like the breathing right underwater. Like they can, for example, connect their like blood system. Let's say we speculated that's probably a better way to deal with the oxygen deprivation than, for example, creating a hole somewhere in their body that will divert the oxygen or something. But I feel like at this point it might be the case that they can somehow isolate the alcohol and direct it straight away outside.
Yeah, well, I don't know how exactly it is they would do that. Physically speaking, right? They still need a way of chemically separating out the alcohol from whatever else they're ingesting, and so on. But yeah, I mean the excessive realism is kind of the point.
I know, but like, I absolutely, obviously it's probably, but I just always think that like, in some cases it feels like Octavia Butler, though she's really good at it, but sometimes it feels like she took the step a bit too far, you know what I mean? She usually gets close, but sometimes it's just like,
yeah, I mean,
can't really come up with the
there's enough kind of hand waving in a couple of these things where I'm like, okay, yes, that's fine. Right?
Hand waving,
exactly. Okay. You can be sufficiently ambiguous in the way that you phrase it that there's a plausible mechanism in there somewhere. But it's the being outright wrong that's the stuff that that occasionally rubs me the wrong way. It's the whole Neil deGrasse Tyson and the sky over Titanic thing, right? It's like, you got it wrong when you could easily have got it exactly right. Why?
No, I know what you mean, but yes, okay. So let's continue. After Akin told Tate about this whole situation, Tate was really worried because Moonshine was strong, obviously. We're talking about like 70-80%, but Akin told her that it wouldn't hurt them in case Neci did find them, but alas, she hasn't yet. And when Tate asked him, how do you know this? Like, Akin tells her, like, oh, actually, I heard Neci asking people around the whereabouts of the girls, outside. Hello, keen hearing. I forgot, we can forget easily about.
Yeah.
Tate then told him that, they would have stopped her, but Akin, counters that with like, she would keep trying. Like it's not, and even though there are more people against her, at some point, somebody would follow her and do what she wanted. So it's we got the example like those two people from the previous chapter discussing. So I'm sure that eventually someone would literally just get it done.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time before someone capitulated.
Tate got really agitated at this point, saying that they would spend days trying to find the girls and something could happen to them in the meantime. For example, they could die. But Akin tells her, no, he wouldn't. Like, he wouldn't die. Nothing will happen to him, so why would anything happen to them? That stopped Tate in her tracks and made her ask if Akin could get home on his own. To which he tells her that, like, yeah, actually, if no human stopped me, then yeah, I could. Tate then asks him, like, if humans would try to stop the girls, and Akin responds, like, girls were already afraid enough to sting. And he's an excerpt from the book. Oh, God, what if someone were going to cut your eyes out and you had a gun? I thought the new species was supposed to be above that kind of thing. They're afraid. They only want to go home. They don't want to be cut. I mean, no matter how peaceful you are, like, still, in a self-defense, you'll do anything to prevent you getting harmed.
I think it's interesting here because, again, we have the situation where Tate and the humans are kind of underestimating the contracts a little bit or modelling them more as human children, when in fact they're kind of a lot more autonomous and able to look after themselves. But, the prospect of encountering the scared Oankali children and their capacity to kill if threatened is a problem for the humans.
No, to be fair, like, it's Nikan said in the first book that they have, Chitaya said, and they have at the very beginning of the book one that they do have this sting that if anything came in, if anything put them in danger, they could use it. So it doesn't mean that the construct wouldn't be also equally, even though they're supposed to be less human, having this like genetic contradictions within them removed, but still being able to protect themselves.
Yep. I mean, if they have the sting, then the reflex for self-defense is like it's just a biologically good sense thing to have, right?
Yeah, honestly.
And I think the males and females are can only sting lethally, right? It's only the Ooloi that have the
that
sting.
can paralyze. Yeah, man, Ooloi are awesome. Like, you can do genetic engineering within any organism, and then oh, I'm gonna stab you. Oh, you got stabbed, but you gonna die or you gonna not gonna die? Like, psych, man, you're gonna get paralyzed for the time being.
Yeah, they are. The Ooloi definitely, I think, the most interesting component of the whole Oankali biology, and they seem almost like a kind of a symbiote that kind of became part of the Oankali biology, right? They seem like they're not fully you've got the kind of conventional sexual reproduction stuff that could go on with the males and females, and you've got this extra thing kind of tacked on that does this genetic engineering
it does
work.
Sound like it, doesn't it? Because, I mean, in a way, it feels like obviously they're male and female, so they could be able to reproduce. And then at some point, an Ooloi evolved that was capable of modifying the genetics that, allowed them to do whatever they wanted. Like, I want to remove this gene, or I want this child to have this and this. So it sounds like they really are like a third addition that was added at some point. Interesting theory. I wonder if there's anybody ever we're gonna be told more about this in the books.
We'll have to find out.
And we'll have to find out. So yeah, at this point, Tate tells Akin to get ready for breakfast because she can sense that a riot will start soon. And as Akin was getting ready, Tate asked him why was he not taken, and to which he responds like, I'm too small, and he couldn't work with them as they can work with each other. And Tate asked them a rhetorical question, like, you wanted to go, only to be welcomed by silence and say something ridiculous. And I wonder why the hell your people don't come for you, she said. You must know better than I to what they're putting you through. To which amazed Akin responds, what they are putting me through? I mean, Tate?
It's like she seems to be really pushing the responsibility for the situation off onto someone else here.
Very human, push the responsibility to someone else, I mean,
the Oankali do technically have the power here in many ways, right? It's if they, I mean, it's interesting how that kind of follows on from Akin just observing that he could, in theory, make it back home if he wasn't intercepted by other humans.
Yeah,
and it feels like there's Tate's kind of remembering how sort of asymmetric their situation their situation is with the Oankali.
But do remind me later about this conversation, because in next chapter when we discuss it, there's something interesting that comes up, and it sort of matches back to what Akin was saying and what his conclusions were, because it's very important that I think for later on chapters, but at least that's my assumption.
Okay.
But yeah, well, just remind me, because I might forget after we do the chapter 19.
Remind you of Tate's
Tate's saying about what they're putting through, and why didn't they collect him?
Okay. Because we have had this whole conversation about are the Oankali
theorizing,
deliberately placing him here?
and that is being raised later on in chapter 19. But anyway, so the conversation moves on to the point about Oankali forcing humans to know what they are, like to not being able to have children. It says that they should allow them to live their way while the Oankali live their own. But Akin tells her that the humans would attack them at some point the same way humans fight each other. At this point, Tate finishes the conversation saying that the people will be here and as the moment she says that, Macy Wilton and Neci Roybal appear. The first question is if they saw the girls, and to which Tate tells them no. Neci then asks Akin what made him sick, and this here an excerpt from a book. I heard you were sick, Akin, Neci said. I'm alright now. What made you sick? He stared at her with quite dislike, wondering what it might be safe to say. Tate spoke up with uncharacteristic softness. He had a dream that upset him. A dream about his mother. Neci raised an eyebrow skeptically. I didn't know they dreamed. Tate shook her head, smiled slightly. Neci, why not? He's at least as human as you are.
Yeah. So this is an interesting little exchange, right? Because Neci's saying, like, I didn't know they dreamed, very much kind of, and like the other type attitude where like they're not human. But at the same time, she has this, she wants to make them look more human. It's like
it's just the contradiction is like it's serious because obviously it's a blend of two different species, and yet like it's they still have part of our of humanity in them. So why would you reject their humanity from them? Like it's it makes no sense. That as you said, they're others still in their eyes.
Yeah, and it's dreaming is a fairly like that's a really fundamental component of the neurology and of intelligent species, right? We see this. So we talked a couple episodes ago about cephalopods, right? Cephalopods have REM sleep; they dream in all likelihood, right? So and it's a very universal feature, despite like they diverged from us, all these millions of years ago, but they still convergently re-evolved some of the higher like neurological functions, but that's a highly conserved thing that goes all the way back to kind of presumably some feature of neurons that causes them, when in complicated systems, to require some sleep.
Yeah, it seems like it's required for regeneration of the neurons, or at least maintenance of their function, right?
And
if I remember correctly, like dreaming, I might be wrong in here because this is some information I might have read during university time, so it's years ago. But dreaming is important to also like consolidate newly learned things like the sleep, and to make sure that the bonds are strong, like of what we've learned.
Memory rehearsal
on the day,
I think, is a thing that it takes place in sleep, so that like newly formed pathways end up kind of being reactivated in sequence. So if you train some activity during the day, then when you go to sleep or take a nap, then those same pathways are reinforced when you sleep. Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly from I think I read about this in a slightly more popular science context. The book was Why We Sleep by Matt Walker, I want to say.
It sounds but the thing is, you might have I've read it some from other source, I think, and I think the same information was repeated, so it could be it could be the case that it's based on some study.
I think it's and most of the stuff in that book is based on he's doing a kind of popularization review of the academic literature, although he's got a few critiques, if I remember correctly, from some sleep researchers for kind of perhaps being a little overly dramatic on some of the health benefits of sleep and some of the risk reduction for things like Alzheimer's and stuff. But there's, I think, still some scope for academic disagreement. But he might have been a little bit hyperbolic on a couple of points. But generally speaking, it's a good book.
So that whole conversation makes Neci to draw back from Tate and ask her, say, she's like, and then Tate should be helping find girls, but Tate tells her that maybe someone followed Neci's advice and cut off their tentacles. that made Macy freeze in place, and Neci respond to Tate is like, "Oh, you have a weird sense of humor." To which Tate tells her that she has no sense of humor with anything concerning her.
Neci, yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, and the end of the last quote you read, actually, I was going to point out, there's this kind of, he's at least as human as you are, feels like a bit of a backhanded slight on Neci, right? Because Tate knows that in some sense Akin's not fully human. He's mixed of Oankali, and I think that's a Neci, you're not fully human either. Kind of a.
To be fair, I mean, honestly, anybody who has this, like, I don't know, like, just the whole idea is like not treating. You can tell from the conversations, like, she's not really treating the kids, as human kids, and yet she wants them to look like human kids, so that at least they can pretend they're human. But she knows that's not it's gonna happen. But she's willing to go as far as mutilating them, just to fulfill her fantasy, and it's just.
Yeah,
take this lady away from kids, away from any kids.
This is one of the things I really love about Octavia Butler's writing is the characters are all really psychologically complex, and I think like quite realistic, because this kind of like bizarre contradiction and so on. It's very human, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's well done. And even some of the relatively minor characters have quite, they're quite well characterized in that regard. You see their contradictions.
They don't fall. She doesn't make tropes or like use tropes of characters. They actually do feel like if you met them, you'd be like, yeah, this is like a typical person you meet on the street.
And they're well individuated, right? They each have a particular set of sort of personality quirks that. They're all quite unique in their own way.
Do you remember in book was it book one? Yeah, book one at the end when one of those guys, when Lilith was training waking up those people in the prison, and one of the people jumped into the cupboard where the food was appearing and never appeared again. That's like typical student-like attitude, like let's get drunk and do something stupid like that. I can tell I've met people like that, and I'm including myself in those people that would do something stupid like this.
Yeah,
at least at those times.
No, it captures the variation in human personality types. And also for kind of for the most part, even the bad characters, or the characters who are bad in quotes, the characters who are currently acting in opposition to the characters that we're having some affinity for,
root for.
Even they are usually have some kind of complexity to them, right? That's usually not completely black and white. You get the impression that some of them are definitely kind of an arse, and Neci, but you also see human aspects to them, and we get flaws in our protagonists as well. So it's
absolutely. I mean, as much as we talk crap about Neci, I mean, I get her. I get why she's just desperate, because all of the humans are desperate for being able to do something for what they always had the possibility for, to do, right? To have children, and I mean, biologically, we at the very basic of biology, it's just we are DNA production machines, and we just want to have our DNA, transferred further down the, line. That's basically it. So it makes sense that we need that. Even as much as you would hate children and whatever, you find yourself like, I don't want to ever have children. That's understandable, but it's still like vast majority of population needs that sort of continuation of the bloodline, if I can say that like that way. But yeah, it's I understand her. I feel for her, but at the same time, the way she acts is just absolutely above the borderline of psychology. She went too far down the dip.
Yep, she's
insanity.
Horrible, but like realistically so, and for understandable reasons.
Yes. And I think that makes you hate her more.
Yeah.
Because you know where, and he still is just like, come on, lady. It's like, it's the petty evil, right? That people hate more than the evil, like, the Dolores Umbridge and Voldemort in Harry Potter. Voldemort, yeah, he's the epitome of evil, but everybody hates Umbridge because she's just that petty little evil that we all know. So,
although I think, in some sense, the characters in Octavia's work, I think, oftentimes they feel a bit more redeemable given the right circumstances, right?
Yeah.
You feel like if you could sit this person down, have the good talking to, given the right circumstances, you might be able to have them be not this.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. And I think this is more. That's why it's so infuriating in some cases. That like you can tell that if you literally sat down with this person a few times, like having a proper session therapy, a few sessions, you could tell that like maybe you could bring that person back to the light side, but.
But again, this is I think very much realistic, right? Most people are they have this kind of they have very human motivations, and given the right set of circumstances, they can be more productive and useful and less toxic and problematic for the society in which they live. Whenever I think about that kind of thing, I always come back to. I've probably mentioned it before. Daryl Davis, the black jazz musician who goes and talks to KKK members. There's that great documentary with him, Accidental Courtesy. But yeah, that's the way that he approaches it is just it's great, right? Because he humanizes himself to them until they can't deal with the cognitive dissonance of the fact that they hate black people, and there's this guy who's their friend, who they respect, who's a black guy. Just bang the cognitive dissonance hard enough that they go, okay, this just doesn't make any sense. It's kind of great.
Yeah, I think it is something that she does a great job about the characters, and really makes you like. You could understand them. You hate them, but you understand them, and that's what makes it worse. I think you can't really separate yourself from them because you know why they do it. You understand it.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's finish off the chapter because we're almost done with it. Tate then tells Macy about what Neci was saying and last night, and made Neci to admit to it. And Neci tells her she won't deny it, and that the girls would look better without those tentacles. And Tate responds to her, just as much better off as you would be without your eyes. And the chapter ends here with Akin surprised how well Tate solved the situation by putting the blame where it belongs, and then going to search for the girls while Akin is staying with some salvager who could not walk because of his injury. That's where they ended. But yeah, well done to Tate with solving the situation and putting where the blame was.
Yeah, and Neci didn't do a particularly great job of recruiting broadly among the group, and they were kind of generally horrified at the suggestion. So that worked out, I think.
It's just honestly. So yeah, I mean, like, my prediction for the chapter 19 was that, like, the girls will not be found, because if they don't want to be found, and especially how well they can survive together because they were older than Akin, there's no chance they're gonna find those girls. And I was hoping that in a way Neci is gonna get punished for her behavior, but unfortunately nothing really happened to her. I missed on that, and it's like, no, she just probably got an earful and people were pissed off with her, but eventually she just go home and not speak to people for a few weeks, and then everything will go back to normal.
Yeah, I'm just kind of a social sanction type deal.
Yeah.
And we kind of discussed last episode, there's not really any kind of formal justice arrangement in the society. It's just too small and too informally organized to have that as a...
I mean, to be fair, like, if you applied the laws here, like, she was planning to do something, but doesn't mean she actually did anything. And of course, the girls were lost, the escape. So how would you even punish this, right? Like, there's no really... any law for that except for like, yeah, you're an asshole and and people stop talking to you, but that's it, right?
Yeah, and they're kind of, they're all kind of guilty of kidnapping in some sense, but
I mean, except for that,
yeah, and yeah, presumably whatever legal system they came up with would have some exemption that would not treat kidnapping Oankali as kidnapping. I don't know.
I mean, if they didn't kidnap technically, somebody else did, and they just traded them, then it's
human
good.
Trafficking.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Although they're not like fully human, so yeah. But I mean,
good old human trafficking, everybody's favorite.
Yeah.
Oh,
you do realize that people
Lord.
sometimes clip things out of context, right?
Oh my. I keep forgetting about this, like that whatever you put on the internet, it stays on the internet forever. I mean, I hope there's enough sarcasm in my voice in that.
I think that's clear enough. Yeah, but it was. Have you ever listened to the Very Bad Wizards podcast?
No. Tell
it's
me.
It's a philosopher and a psychologist, and for years there was a Twitter account that was VBW, Very Bad Wizards, out of context. That just clipped what they said out of context, and it was always just like the most horrendous stuff. It's just like anti-Semitic jokes and all kinds of terrible things. But yeah, it was just like the worst possible context in which you could present what they were saying, and it was always like, wow, you would be immediately cancelled.
I know, but like. This is the thing, like, you can take so much stuff out of context, and I did say a lot of stuff in the last 40 episodes.
Oh yeah
or more.
Me
actually
too.
I said enough that you could probably, like, I don't know, I'd have to be buried in a ditch somewhere just like to hide from all of the embarrassment of what things I've said. But hey.
Plus we now have enough training data out there for the deep fake people to completely fake everything we say in calls, right? Well, so if you get a call from us out of the blue, then
it's not us.
It's not us.
It really is not us.
Probably not.
We are immediately on this recording. We're saying we take complete no responsibility for anything that happens because we would never contact people. I'm as antisocial as it comes, and I'm not gonna talk to people. I just generally don't respond to phone calls unless I know somebody, or so I am all expecting the phone call.
Yeah, these days, pretty much.
I would Google the phone number first.
Mm-hmm.
Damn it. Oof.
But we became sidetracked again.
Yes. So, chapter 19. As I predicted, the girls were not found. People were speculating maybe they were gone in other register villages or safe in the trade or on some trade villages. But most people believe that the girls were dead. I mean, obviously young, the girls of their age, how could they survive on their own? Most resistors blamed, rightfully so, Neci for what happened, although no punishment reached her. Neci left Akin alone, which made Akin happy, but she started planting the idea of him that he should be under constant watch by everyone. She wanted him basically under 24/7 surveillance and be harnessed and tied outside the cabins when everyone was too busy to watch him. Oof, my dear God. Of course, Akin would not stand for it and try everything to break free and escape. He would not stay with people who tried to tie him up. But it never happened. Likely, he was watched more carefully, but nothing else. Eventually, Neci left with a group of salvages, going home, who were taking all their salvage items with them, and the group took also the 2 guns with them back to the village. There was a general agreement between the people of the Phoenix that they need to start manufacturing guns. Tate was against it, and Yori, the doctor, threatened that she would move to another village if they did. But nevertheless, the decision was made to start making guns. The reason was too many raiders have guns now, and they need to protect themselves because at some point someone will try to raid them instead of coming for a honest trading.
Mm-hmm. I think it's difficult to avoid that. Yeah, it makes sense, right?
The moment somebody makes a gun, I mean, a bow is a hunting weapon, and the sword was, I think, the first weapon as such that was made for purposely to fight, right? Because everything, spear, a bow, of humans, talking about humans, spears, bows were initially used for hunting. And then obviously the more efficient guns just made everything, less personal, as, later on Tate talks about it. But
it's an arms race situation, right? I mean, if you've got raiding gangs, around the area trying to rob places, then like you have to kind of step up in the same way, or
absolutely
you just lose all your resources, right? It's
and your life, to be fair. So Tate couldn't sleep several nights after the decision was made. Akin tried to comfort her and talk to her. He asked her one night if raiders would begin raiding them like they do for the trade villages, lol. To which Tate tells him that probably because they've tried to steal their women and metal before. But Phoenix is strong because there's a lot of people in the village and a lot of them were willing to fight. Akin then asks her if having guns is really that bad of an idea, to which Tate asks him what does he think. And this is an excerpt from the book. I don't know. I like a lot of people in Phoenix, and I remember what raiders did to Tino. They didn't have to. They just did it. Later, though, while I was with them, they didn't really seem... I don't know. Most of the time, they were like the men in Phoenix. So it was like... in his eyes, obviously, those men were just like, they killed a man, but it never really occurred to the man that Tina was a human, right? Like, it was just like killing a snake, basically, like how Akin described it when the whole situation took place. Tate tells him then they probably came from the place like Phoenix, but got sick of their pointless existence. It would be different if they had children like him. Akin asks her why she's so afraid of guns, and Tate tells him that they make killings too easy, too impersonal. Obviously Tate loves it when it's when she looks straight into eyes of their victim with the sword penetrating her, the gut, and it's just like that visceral feeling. Oh, Tate, wonderful.
I like to watch the light go out.
another clip out of this. Now, Richard, yes, I'm not the only one.
I'm quoting the boys.
Sure. Eventually, they will learn how to make better guns, and someday take on the Oankali, and that will be the end of them. Akin asked her then what would she want instead? Not extinction, to have human kids. Akin tells her that she could have kids like Akin, and this is an excerpt from the book. I'm human like you, and Oankali like Akjai and Dichan. You don't understand. I'm trying to. Are you? She dashes his face. Why? I need to. It's part of me too. It concerns me too. Not really. Abruptly, he was angry. He hated her soft condescension. Then why am I here? Why are you here? You and Gabe would be down in Phoenix if it didn't concern me. I would be back in law. Oankali and human have done what human male and female used to do. They made me an Ama and Shkacht, and they're no more extinct than you would be if you had kids with Gabe. Tate turned away from him as much as he could and told him to sleep. Akin couldn't sleep. He was thinking about what they talked about. Humans should have their own Akjai division. Why should it be so difficult? They could isolate the humans on an island to let them live the way they want. The problem was when the constructs were going to scatter into space, they would leave the Earth in ruin. Obviously, the spaceships, just remind the spaceship would eat the whole bioflora and stuff like that. But maybe there were Oankali who spoke in the interest of humans. Maybe there would be a possibility to listen to humans, but because of their genetic flaws, they were not listened to. But Akin didn't have those flaws. He was the Oankali and a human. Maybe he could, he bridge it. But it was so far he wasn't even able to make Ama and Shkacht understand. He didn't know enough yet, and there is need to help him learn more. And that's where the chapter ends. And this is where I wanted to actually go back to earlier on mentioned, like, when Tate said, what was it? I wonder what the hell people, didn't come for you. They must know better than you what they're putting you through, and like what they're putting you through. So the whole idea is that, Akin realizes finally, I think agree, is that his job is to learn about the humans. Like, this is...
Yeah.
I think the Oankali realized the problem, and, the fact that, humans are making guns, and eventually they will kill each other, or try to kill the Oankali, and then end up with, big problem, basically going extinct, and that's why they need Akin to learn.
Yeah, I think this is. And we discussed it before. We're not quite sure how representative this trade with the humans is of their previous trades. And that this one might be in some ways unusual because of the degree of intelligence of the humans and the kind of somewhat involuntary manner in which it's taking place, with them being kind of rescued from a nuclear apocalypse. And so that kind of imbalance means that this might not be unfolding in the way that it would perhaps under different circumstances. So the approach the Oankali is taking might be more like forceful or overbearing in some sense in this scenario than it would be perhaps in others. And so the importance of the function that Akin has here as being kind of an intermediary and a bridge between the human side and the Oankali side is more important in some ways in this circumstance.
You know what? I think because we mentioned earlier that the Oankali said that humans are the first as intelligent species they're doing the trade with as so far. And I have this feeling that before Oankali, let's say they met, like there were plants and animals, that they were not like as intelligent in a way. And the Oankali basically assimilated them. They didn't leave any Akjai division then. They just did it because that was the trade in their language. Although the trade is probably not the correct word to use it here, but hey. But now the humans being what they are indicates that the Oankali, I think, realize that they sort of need to change their ways.
Yeah.
But they can't change their ways by themselves. They need the bridge that they've created with the humans to be the
a credible voice for the human side of the case, right? That can communicate in both languages, as it were.
Yes. That basically, as Kaguya said, that Lilith will not understand them, but her children will, and I think that's what they need. That they need that it's time for the constructs, for people like Akin to grow up and learn, and then realize that there's need to be a change in Oankali.
And the thing with Lilith applies the other way around, right? They won't fully understand the humans, even though they're perhaps a little arrogant in the degree to which they currently think they understand the humans. But that applies in the other direction too.
Yeah, and I feel like it's because So I think it's, even though the Oankali can understand the genome of the humans, it's still, maybe they don't realize how really affecting it is for humans.
They don't understand the psychology and the culture yet.
Yeah.
Even though they have some insight into it, and they're they have a partial understanding of it. Even though, like, when they chose Lilith, for example, as the leader of the cohort, right? They clearly made some fairly psychologically informed choices. They also made obvious blunders, like the thing with Titus and the whole conflict that arose in the first group, right? So there's so many like, they're clearly missing stuff in their insights into human psychology and culture.
No, absolutely, I agree, and I think that's what important. And in my prediction, actually, chapter prediction, that's what I wanted to mention because it links to it. I think this whole situation with the Neci is finished, and we are about to reach another jump in time.
Okay.
And basically, where Akin is spending more time with the salvages and trying to learn about humans. I think this is like he's trying to learn more to become the bridge between the Oankali and humans. That's why I think it's like, because we're almost finished with the chapter. It's chapter 20, and I think there's 4 more chapters to do of Nib's part, if I remember correctly.
I can't remember.
And basically, so we're almost finished with part. So I think Octavia Butler is gonna try to wrap up and make Akin learn as much as possible about the humans for the next part of the book.
Yeah. Interesting that you're predicting where the time skips might be. That's an interesting thing to try and do. Yeah, I like that.
It's just because earlier I couldn't tell at all, right? But now it sort of feels like this whole situation has reached the conclusion, and we have this sort of like, Akin thinking about like, I need to learn. And usually when like, if somebody says learn, that means there's gonna some time passing, right? They are not going to, nothing's gonna happen really at the salvage side, except for maybe, like some uneventful event. So there has to be some sort of time skip.
Okay. There was one other point I wanted to touch on before we wrap up. On the point about the kind of extinction or not with the mixing of the human and the Oankali.
Yeah.
And in some sense, the human species is kind of technically going extinct in that mix because they're being there's no kind of like unmixed human lineage arising from that situation, and in the sense that. If you take the kind of gene's eye view of it, right? I mean, a lot of the genes from the human lineage are still surviving, but there are some that are still going to go extinct in that mix, or there are some complexes of genes that have mutually complementary functions that will be lost or separated in that mix, right? So there's still kind of a like the aversion still kind of makes sense in like an EvoPsych kind of framing, right? Parts of those genetics will go extinct, even though parts of them will continue on.
Sorry, so you just want to raise the point, right? I thought you were going to question.
No, that was all really. I was just going to make that observation.
I see. Okay. I thought
the nature of the extinction.
I was expecting some question towards me, because usually you ask me what do I think about something, but yeah, I agree. It's the fact that it is interesting. Concept, right, when you think about it, because in a way humans are going extinct, but in realistically our genome is just being blended with another one, so there's a continuation of the genome. So but DNA is just going forward, and DNA is like, I'm happy with it. From pure biological perspective, but like, everything else is just being basically diminished. But for purely biological concept, it's just like, it's nothing really changes. It's just continuation of the, in a way, it's always improvement in a way of the DNA.
In some ways, yeah, but also the the kind of existing alliances, if you will, between certain genes are being lost, right? So almost certainly there'll be some stuff that will go to fixation in the new population, and some stuff that will go extinct from the human genome, right? There'll be stuff that isn't used in the new blend. Right? So my point was just kind of like some of it's going extinct, but the rest of it is not. So it still kind of makes sense from the perspective of like if you think of the genes as the thing that's interested in their self-preservation, and that shaping the psychology of their like shared host, as it were, and as an organism doing the replicating, then the unity of that package of genes going forward is something that you would want to be valuable to the organism if you're interested in preserving the interest of all the genes, right? And it needs to be like for the game theory of genes sharing a single like replicator to at the organismal level to make sense, they have to be in it as a group to some degree, right?
No, absolutely. But yeah. It's interesting. I'm really curious. Like, I mean, I was going to say something, but then I realized that's already been done. I was just talking about like splicing human genes and other. Of course, we've done this before. So, so yeah, I don't think Oankali would have much problem with doing that. So, because obviously they were doing that, but it's just curious, like what could you really push the human genome to. What the Oankali, if the Oankali wanted to, what could you make humans, into, like, because we know like Lilith super strength, and then like maybe infrared eyesight, or stuff like that.
Yeah, all kinds of cool new features.
Yeah, but I guess that's it for today's episode.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We're Xenothesis. You can find all the places we upload our podcast on our website, xenothesis.com. I was Michael Glinka.
I was Richard Axon.
Bye-bye.